Hello, this is the first video, not the official first video because I've attempted many times to put content on this channel, but this is the first video that I'm making in a series of videos just talking about how much I love D&D and getting people's opinions on D&D. So the first one today, I'm going to talk about my first ever character, which was a tiefling wizard. This is actually my original player's handbook I bought from Books A Million for retail price at the time. Because now you can get a player's handbook off Amazon for like $20. But this was my first one. I still have it. It goes on my shelf. I don't use it too often because I have D&D Beyond, obviously. But yeah, we're going to talk about my first ever character, Ragna Orewood, tiefling wizard, and how I died 5 minutes into my first ever session of D&D. So the basic story behind that is it was my first time playing. This was 2015. My cousin came to me. He's like, "Hey, we should play Dungeons and Dragons," and I was like, "I don't know. That sounds like kind of too nerdy for me." And he's like, "No, watch this show called Critical Role. You trust me, you'll love it." And I was like, ah. So I played the first episode, and I fell in love with D&D. I was like, yes, I want to play this. Yes, I want to try it. When can we play? So fast forward a few weeks later, and I'm making a character. I bought the player's handbook, and I'm like, what do I want to play? I went through, I'm like, you know what? Tiefling seems pretty cool. Maybe I'll make a tiefling. And I was like, well, what class? And I was like, a wizard sounds cool. So I made a wizard, a tiefling wizard. And we get down to play in the first session, and it's me, my cousin Connor, who I play with still to this day, and his sister, my other cousin Maya. And it was just us three, him as the dungeon master, and me and Maya as players. And I was like, okay, this will be great. So he introduces us we are sitting at a expended campfire, and this is morning, so it's after a rest. It's our first time, so he's not going crazy with story or anything like that. But he also had a DMPC whose name I can't remember, but it was a dragonborn. And I can't remember what Maya was playing as either. But I remember my character. And what happened is I heard a noise. I rolled high enough on perception. I was the only one who heard it. I heard a noise off in the distance, not too far from the camp. And me being eager, I was like, you know what? I'm going to investigate this. Nobody came with me. So I walk up to this patch of tall grass and get into combat with a giant snake, which then proceeded to do... I was a squishy wizard too. I did not have a lot of hit points. This was level 1 or 2, maybe 3. And it hit me. It didn't roll critical, but it rolled enough damage where it took my whole hit points and then into the negative to equal my health. So I would have died outright, which is something that you have to worry about when you're low level. And if I remember the rule correctly, the way it works is if you are hit to 0, and then the damage continues into the negatives and equals your hit points as if they were negative, like if, say, you have 10 hit points, and it did 20, so it's 10 to negative 10, you die outright, I think. It's been a while. But I died outright, but my cousin, of course, was like, you know what? It's your first time playing, you don't die outright, you just go down to make death saving throws. So I'm sitting there making death saving throws. His DMPC and my other cousin come over, and they fight the giant snake, and they beat it. And they revived me, and I learned a valuable lesson the very first time I ever played. If you're a wizard, don't go investigating every noise you hear alone. But that was the start of my first ever campaign. We only played like 2 more sessions after that, and it was great. At one point he brought out a homebrew. I can't remember what it was. It was like a wolf, but it had an ability where anyone in its immediate area within 5 feet, I think, had to roll with disadvantage for everything. So I'm, of course, rolling for disadvantage. I keep hitting it with a dagger until I didn't 1v1 it, but I beat it down to the point where the DMPC and my other cousin could kill it. But I was very proud. I was like, you know what? Hey, I fought this thing by myself for a little. Not by myself. They helped, but I was the only one hitting it for a while, and it just couldn't hit me. And that's just how, that's how the dice go. Sometimes you can get really lucky. Sometimes you can also get one shot by a giant snake and die. But that character, only for 2 sessions. But you always remember your first character. At least I think you do. I've not talked to people. I don't really talk to many people. But I assume your first character is special. It's something... It's an experience you can't replicate. You sit there and you're like, this is my first character. The first time I sat down to play D&D. And it could go great. If I had died, for all I know, I could have been like, you know what, this isn't for me. But even though I died, and like I said, he retconned it so I didn't die. He went against the rules as written. But that's how you got to go sometimes. Because if I had died and I was like, you know what, that's kind of sucky. I died right off the bat. I don't want to play anymore. That's not what happened, obviously, but I can see that happening with certain people who they're excited to play, and then the character they've spent, their first character, the character they've spent time on, gets killed. And of course it's going to be like, I just made this character and I'm already dead. First session, 5 minutes in. So it could have gone either way. And I'm very happy it went the way it did. I think it kind of impacted me in a way where I play very, not loosey-goosey, but I play very, I stick to the rules obviously, but I'm also very open. If it's a player's first time and stuff isn't going their way, I might fudge a couple rolls here and there. Or I might reward them for doing something interesting. And I've never had, I think I've only ever had one player death, which isn't something you should brag about. You should make, if your game, if they're never in danger, there's no point. But the only player death I've ever had was justified. They went off on, they split the party, went off on their own. I'll probably regale that story eventually. But for this one, it really made me into the dungeon master I am now, where I want the players to have fun more than my enjoyment. And I still enjoy the game, don't get me wrong. But it's more or less of, I want my players to always have fun. And that's one of the ways, that's kind of how it should be. Every player should be enjoying. If you're detracting from other players, like if you're focusing on one person and the other ones are getting, a little shunned, not shunned, but if you don't give them the spotlight every now and then, it can get kind of boring. And I'm pretty much repeating what most dungeon masters say, and it's the norm to want your players to have fun. But I think if I had died and been permanently killed, I'd be a completely different dungeon master than I am now. And yeah, I have to think on that. Like, what could have happened? But yeah, that's about all I got for my first character. Like I said, I died in the first session, played 2 more. After that, I went off and dungeon mastered for my friends, and that's a whole another story. Trust me, it's its own concentrated story. But that's my first ever experience with Dungeons and Dragons. My first character, Ragna Orewood, the Tiefling Wizard. I think I was a Conjuration Wizard because I was looking through all the spells and I was like, ooh, I want to summon... There was a spell in particular where you could like turn objects into living things and they'd fight for you, I think. I haven't been a player in a long time, so I haven't really delved into making a character like Ragna again. I've played here and there as a player, but I'm a what's the word? I'm a dungeon master. And I love being a dungeon master, but that's about it. So, thanks for watching, and there's going to be more videos. I have tons to talk about. I'm thinking about telling stories from my other sessions that weren't recorded, because at a certain point I started recording all my sessions and posting them on YouTube, not for views, but for me, because then I could go back and listen to it at work and be like, okay, they did this, this, and this, and it gets my creative juices flowing if I'm constantly thinking about it. Because also, where I work, I have a lot of, not downtime, but I have a lot of time where I can listen to headphones, so I listen to my old sessions. And so I've got a lot of stories though from before I started recording, and they're pretty good. There are a lot of good moments in there, so I'll probably talk about them. But thanks for watching. And in the comments below, list your first player character, the first one you ever made, not the first one you played as necessarily. Well, yeah, the first one you made straight up. You sat down for the first time ever, and you're like, this is what I want to play, and this is what I'm gonna play. So just put those in the comments, and thanks for watching.